So it's fairly straightforward to launch a business and get it to say $10,000 a month or $1,000 a day, $30,000 a month. But let's talk about growing to that $1 million level. How do you actually get this business from that upstart level, which there's a blueprint? Pretty straightforward. How do you grow it? How do you hit 1 million? And just in case this video reaches a new audience, I'm mainly talking in the framework of a physical products business, selling online, say launching on Amazon. But I think these principles will apply even much broader than that. And I first just want to define what $1 million business is, because there's a couple different ways of looking at it. Obviously, there's the income you could be making every month is one way of looking at business. And another way is looking at the valuation of the asset you are creating. If you were to say, sell your business for 1 watt of cash. So you might define a $1 million business as a business that does $1 million in revenue per year. And that might actually be worth about $1 million because obviously there's profit margins. But let's say that $1 million in revenue business operates at a 33% profit margin. So it's profiting $333,000 per year. And let's say that business is able to sell at a multiple of 3x. That means 3x your annual earnings is the value of the business. So that business would be doing $1 million in sales and worth $1 million. But what I want to get into in this video is that there's 2 ways to grow. One is to increase your profitability, and the other way is to increase the multiple that you would be able to sell at. And both are ways of increasing your valuation. So to make multiples simple, typically different types of businesses or businesses with different levels of certainty are going to sell for different multiples. And this goes all the way up into the crazy tech companies that sell for obscene multiples because they have something very, very unique. But say in the e-commerce space, your multiple is typically going to be, say, 2 to 4x. And it could definitely be lower than that for a really not great business. And it could definitely be much, much, much higher than that for a phenomenal business. And those multiples in this space are typically based on profit, not revenue. So let's say you have a business that's profiting $200,000 a year. And based on what you're currently doing, and we'll get into growing this, let's say your valuation would be at a 2x multiple. So your $200,000 per year profit business is only worth $400,000 if you want to sell it. So at that multiple, to get up to a $1 million business, your $200,000 would have to go to $500,000 and then 2x to 1 million. Or what if your revenue went up to $300,000 and your multiple went up to 3x? Well, now you're at $900,000. Or let's say hypothetically, you go up to $250,000 in profit, but your multiple goes all the way to 4x, and now you're at that $1 million business. So what I want to make clear is that there's 2 different levers to be playing with. There's your annual profitability and there's your multiple. And both these are a factor in the overall valuation of your business, and each one should be worked on and thought about in terms of growing. So now that you have the premise, the meat of this video is what are the things we can do to increase that valuation and grow from that starting base, which you guys know how to get to relatively straightforwardly, and grow that to a business that's worth $1 million. So starting off with the clear-cut path that I've talked about on this channel a million times, this is to add more products. And this is obviously working on the revenue and profitability side. And then the rest will be talking about the stuff that you've probably never really heard about in this context on the growing your multiple side. So let's say you've got to $300 a day in revenue, or $1,000 a day in revenue, or even $2,000 a day in revenue. The most clear way to get from there to $3,000 a day, which I'll use as the benchmark for $1 million business, as I explained, the most clear way is to add more products. Like if you know how to get to $500 a day and you did that on one product, do the same thing and now you're at $1,000 a day. Do the same thing and now you're at $1,500 a day. So I still think the most clear-cut way to grow an e-commerce business is to rinse and repeat and do the same thing that you just proved that you know how to do, and do it again and again and again and again. And I'll link up a video here that I made about what I mean when I talk about growing a product line and growing a brand of related products. And this is also going to be crucial when it comes to increasing your valuation. So having that cohesive brand is going to be the foundation of all of the points that we're about to talk about when it comes comes to growing your valuation. Because if you're just selling random product and then ditching it and then random product, you're not going to have the foundational layers to be doing any of the things that we're talking about from here on forward. So hopefully you're already sold on the concept of starting your own brand, selling related products, and you're not just looking for these short-term, up and down opportunities that have no real sustainability. And again, if you want more on that topic, there's a ton already on this channel. But the first way of growing your valuation, and this is directly related to more products, is introducing ways of getting your customer value up. So that customer, can you get them to buy more products from you at one time, different products that you're offering? Can you get them to buy products repeatedly, a month later, 6 months later? Is there something they need to replenish? Is there another accessory that they want to add to this product? So repeat orders are something that massively increases valuation, because if you think about valuation as how safeguarded your business is to a potential buyer or investor, those are things that are going to increase the value, are things that make it more of a moat around the business, more of a castle that you've built. And say half your orders every day were from customers who had ordered from you in the past. Now you have a business that is pretty much indestructible. And that's a high bar to go for, of course. But the closer you get that number up, the higher your valuation is going to go in conjunction with that, because it's so much more protectable. And so as you're launching new products and building out your brand, if you're baking in some level of increasing that order, that cart value, getting them to buy more products, or getting more products that the same customers can buy, or getting recurring products that the same customer will buy the same thing over and over again, those things all have a massive impact in your multiple when you go to sell. So as I lay out these points, they're kind of going to fit into 3 buckets. And what I just finished was the first bucket, which is kind of that classic growing your brand with some of that stuff sprinkled in as far as getting the order value up and the recurring up. That's going to position you for a higher multiple. But those all fit into the sort of traditional launch a product on Amazon and scale it and make more money. And spoiler alert, the more you get these 3 buckets filled up, the more your valuation is overall going to go up. So if you have 2 out of 3 of them instead of 1 out of 3 of them, your valuation is going to be much, much, much better than if you'd have just 1 out of 3, say just selling on Amazon. And if you have all 3, then it's going to synergize and be a monster business that would potentially be a 4, 5, 6x. I mean, some go for 10x depending on if it's a strategic buyer. So the second bucket is basically the DTC model, which is the direct-to-consumer model. And this is a business space in general that's being disrupted much larger than just Amazon brands themselves. I mean, look at, say, the products that you're probably seeing a lot of ads for. Classic examples of DTC would be all these new mattress companies that are constantly advertising on podcasts and stuff like that, or say Warby Parker with their glasses. Any product that is kind of just done in the 2020 way and going straight to the consumer. It's that model of we cut out the middleman, we made the best product, and we're just selling it directly to the consumer. And the key reason why these businesses are so valuable and how you can plug it into your Amazon business is that these businesses have their customer data. For example, 30 years ago, a brand that was worth hundreds of millions of dollars or $1 billion that was only selling on the store shelves, they might not even know any of their own customers because they don't have that data. So the value is in the data, because the data is what allows you to remarket to those customers, sell more products to them, tying into that first point. This is what allows you to grow that protectable thing over the next decade. So bucket 2 is how many sales are you getting on your own channels, say on your own Shopify store, which you're driving from social media, even word of mouth, paid ads on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, whatever. And this is probably the hardest of the 3 to crack, and it is not easy, but the world-class players figure this out, and this has a massive impact in the protectability and the valuation of your business if you're getting a large amount of sales on your own channels and through your own email lists. So not only the sales aspect, but how much data do you have? Do you have these big Facebook groups or Instagram followings or email lists where you're collecting your customers and potential customers and creating a real brand and community in your space? That has massive value. So as far as the multiple buckets, let's say you had just Amazon and just your own Shopify store. And let's say you even got it to a point where instead of being 100% Amazon and 0% anything else, you are now 75% Amazon, 25% Shopify. Even that difference allows your business to be so much more stable to a potential buyer. So that alone might bring you from that low 2 range into the mid 3s, which even if you were selling no more product and you were profiting no more, $200,000 in revenue just went from $400,000 to probably $600,000 or $700,000. And even if you're not utilizing all this stuff, just collecting the data and having this information to be utilized later has value to potential buyers who could strategically throw their special sauce onto your business and do all these things. And that's why I talk so much about Amazon and being focused on Amazon, but laying the foundation for these other pieces at the same time. And this third channel is almost never talked about in our space. And I am personally very, very intrigued by this one because I think it's arguably a lot easier than number 2 of figuring out all that direct-to-consumer digital marketing on your own. And this channel could be much more hands-off and potentially just as big, if not your biggest channel in the future. So what I'm talking about is taking your brand of product and wholesaling it to retailers, those store shelves. And yes, I mentioned in the last point, you don't have the customer data there, and that is a downside. But if you're doing this as a third bucket in addition to the other 2, or even just in addition to Amazon, this has a massive impact on your business in addition to adding a lot to your bottom line. So this is really going to grow both sides. So is the Shopify one. It's going to potentially grow your own if you are really getting more sales there. But this is going to add an entirely new channel to your business. And one reservation I think a lot of people have with this is like, oh, aren't I getting such a lower margin here compared with selling on Amazon? And not to make this a super long video just about breaking down profit margins, maybe that's for another day, but I honestly think this can be equally as profitable, and you can just be selling hundreds or thousands of units at a time. And while on Amazon you might be selling at a full retail price of $30, the product that you sourced for $7, you're still paying half of that to Amazon for all these different ads and fulfillment. Whereas if you're selling your $7 product direct to a wholesaler for $15 to sell it for $30, well, now you're basically profiting the same amount. And another huge benefit of this one is once you land a contract, it's potentially very recurring, and that adds into valuation as well, because now you kind of have a recurring revenue element of your business, not in the traditional sort of customer on a subscription way, but if this store is ordering $3,000 of product every single month from you for the past year, that's going to look incredible in the valuation of your business. And again, this one's not talked a lot about, but I want to get into it more on this channel, so leave a comment specifically if this one is interesting to you, because I'm planning on having a friend who is a killer at this on the channel a few times over the next coming months. So let me know what questions you might have about this. And so overall, the more you have these different channels filling up and you have your customer data, you have these recurring wholesalers, you have your Amazon stuff, you have your Shopify, you have your social media. The more of these different buckets and channels you can fill, the more that multiple is going to increase. At the same time, your revenue is increasing. So obviously focusing on increasing your revenue and profit is important, but spend some time on that other piece like I talked about here, and you're increasing your overall valuation by a factor of how much you're increasing your profit. And if you're not already launched and at that $1,000 a day or so, then there's a link in the description to an hour-long free training. I definitely suggest starting there. It is very, very helpful and will totally get you going. There are also a bunch of other resources linked down there in the description, so be sure to check that out too, and smash the like button, feed that YouTube algorithm, subscribe, and hit the bell if you have not already. Leave comments. Again, I'm especially curious what you think about the brand to wholesale model. I would love to hear your thoughts, and feel free to follow me on Instagram as well, at Matt Loberstein. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you thought, and see ya soon. I think that's just Amazon.